Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Log4J vulnerability by Intellipaat. Log4 shell, an internet vulnerability that affects millions of computers, involves an obscure but nearly ubiquitous piece of software, Log4j. The software is used to record all manners of activities that go on under the hood in a wide range of computer systems. This is truly a matter of concern. So, in this session, we will know all about Log4j vulnerability. So, without further wait, let's start the session. But before we begin the session, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you'll never miss any update from us.
Hello guys and welcome to the session on what is Log4j vulnerability. Now before starting the session, let's discuss today's agenda. So we are going to discuss about what is Log4j, then we are going to look at why this vulnerability is so bad, and then we are going to look at what is JNDI, and then we are going to discuss about mitigating Log4j vulnerability, and at the end we are going to discuss about its future prospects. Log4j vulnerability is so serious that it has been covered as a headline on the Hindu, Business Line, and the Indian Express. It's so strange that a traditional Java library has made its way onto the mainstream. The Log4j issue, which was initially disclosed few months back, is turning out to be a cybersecurity nightmare that will likely affect a wide range of businesses, including Apple's iCloud, Twitter, Microsoft's Minecraft, Amazon, and a number of other enterprise applications. Minecraft screenshots circulating on the news appear to show that people are taking advantage of the Minecraft chat function's vulnerability. Some Twitter users began changing their display names to code sequences that may have triggered the attack. Another person did the same thing by changing the name of his iPhone and reporting the discovery to Apple. According to Google researchers, more than 8% of the packages on Maven Central, which is a huge Java package repository, contains at least one version that is vulnerable to this vulnerability. The Log4j vulnerability enables the attackers to remotely execute code on any affected computers. But the question is, what is Log4j? Log4j is an open source software that serves as a logging library for Java. Suppose you want to log files when something goes wrong. Add a message, debug a message, and then you can look into the log files and troubleshoot. As far as my experience with Java, I feel that logging library in Java has always been into some kind of rumble. It is widely used by enterprises and websites, so the probability of exploitation becomes more. When this vulnerability was discovered, the enterprises started racing to do a patch with the updated version, and hackers competing to exploit the application before the patch. Multiple vulnerabilities in Apache Log4j have been identified by the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, which might be exploited by a remote attacker to execute arbitrary code or launch a denial of service attacks on the affected servers. Log4j is a logging library written in Java, and that is also a part of Apache open source project. But the question is, why this vulnerability is so bad? The issue with this vulnerability is the ease with which it can be exploited. According to the CVSS score, its score stands at 10.0, which indicates that the attack vectors are very complicated and this vulnerability has a very critical impact. Anyone could spray a series of payloads on a susceptible configuration and use DNS callbacks to exfiltrate the sensitive data. According to the survey done by Sync, it states that 39.2% of the users use this library directly, and 60.8% of the users use this library indirectly. Now, before understanding how this vulnerability can be so serious, let's discuss the concept of JNDI. JNDI stands for the Java Name and Directory Interface is an application programming interface for applications built in Java programming language. It provides naming and directory capabilities. It's designed to work with any directory device or service solution. Consider this as an LDAP URL. If I invoke this link, so in return, I'll get a serialized Java object. In this case, it specifies a base search for the entry with a distinguished name osiris.com. This is a Java feature and had been on a platform for many years. Back in 2013, a developer contributed a new feature called JNDI lookups for the log messages. A fine example would be, consider this. So here, the following code looks up for the object called Rosanna Lee and in the category called people. And it casts its LDAP context. So if you see the code, you would have understood that it is trying to find out or trying to look up for Rosanna Lee. Let's take another example. So in this code, the logger.error is going to look up the value of the environment variable and going to insert in this curly braces. And this is the vulnerability. Let me explain. Suppose you are submitting a request with a JNDI URL to a susceptible application, and you have built a JNDI server with a malicious code over here. And the JNDI endpoint returns your malicious code. It can also be any Java class that you pass. It takes the string class and your application tries to log in with the log4j. It is going to look up for that URL and send a JNDI request to your malicious server, receiving a serialized malicious object in return. And who knows what you have placed in that object? So there is an injection of malicious object that you have placed in that program. It was not placed by the application onto its own. You would have discovered something new here. And here you would have explored that you have the ability to put the malicious object in someone else's JVM. That may sound kind of absurd, but that is precisely the vulnerability. Imagine instantiating a Java object of your code in a popular edtech platform or JVM of a popular social media website. You can do as many times as you want. You can execute a code in that object, and this is what is referred to as remote code execution. Then the question comes up, how you are going to mitigate this problem. Log4j vulnerability is hazardous and must be addressed as soon as feasible. Any firm running Log4j version 2.14 or lower, or patch versions 2.15 and 2.16 with issues, is at risk from Log4 shell. The Apache Logging Services project has addressed the zero-day vulnerability. Enterprises must install the security upgrade Log4j version 2.17. But keep in mind that upgrading critical systems takes time to guarantee that no functionality is lost. Another issue with this defect is that it's not always evident when Log4j is used. Possible that it's incorporated in a third-party library or dependency. Thus, even if Java isn't installed or running on the process list, computer can be presumed to be safe. For instance, when it comes to Log4j, the following could be true. You can check your company's software bill of materials for Log4j and make sure everybody who uses it upstream or downstream has fixed the vulnerability. Upgrading to patch version of Log4j is the only option to eradicate the vulnerability. As a top priority, security teams should examine all systems and software for the use of Log4j and implement the most recent security patch for the internet-facing software and devices as soon as feasible. Any alarms triggered by these components should be prioritized. Let's understand how vendor software has a role to play in mitigating Log4j vulnerability. For internally installed software that is vulnerable, such as MuleSoft, Bitbucket Server, Salesforce, and AWS Lambda, security teams may have to wait for a vendor instructions and upgrade. CISA, which stands for Certified Information Systems Auditor, keeps track of all the affected manufacturers and products, while Apache's Log4j security vulnerability page explains how to mitigate exposure until patches are available. If we discuss about the in-house software, in-house programs should be examined for Log4 shell vulnerabilities using a software composition analysis or a SCA tool. The technologies required to mitigate the Log4j flaw. A web application firewall is the most effective approach to stop malicious requests targeting Log4j. Request data can be compared to the rules showed by web application firewalls. Attackers will develop strategies and patterns to get around these checks. Therefore, stay up to date on the new advancement and the web application firewall rules. Let's discuss about its future prospects. Modern applications and IT infrastructures are made of very complex components and dependencies. The next serious vulnerability involving a widely used code library will be upon us anytime by the Log4 shell has been fully mitigated. To reduce the risk and future of vulnerabilities, security teams must collaborate with the DevOps teams to ensure that every component used in the IT environment is well documented, as well as a contingency plan for upgrading or patching them. Meanwhile, internal development pipelines must incorporate CA as well as static and dynamic application security testing technology to avoid risky libraries or code from making it to production. Thanks, and that's all from my side. I hope that you would have enjoyed today's session. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon.
Just a quick info, guys. If you want to make a career in cybersecurity, then Intellipaat has a post-graduation certification in cybersecurity and ethical hacking by ENICT Academy, MNIT Jaipur. This course is of very high quality and cost effective, as it is taught by MNIT professors and industry experts.